On Christmas Eve, a little girl's biggest childhood dream comes true when she gets the doll she's always wanted. But a single glance at a sad little boy changes everything, and she decides to do something no one ever expected. This innocent gesture sparks a magical night that will change two families forever. If this story has you hooked, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and let us know what city you're watching from. Let's get right into it. I promise you, this is going to be the best story you've ever heard. Chapter 1. Fifth Avenue was buzzing on the afternoon of December 23rd. The winter sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows on the pavement, and the crisp air was filled with the energy of last-minute Christmas shopping. Robert walked hand in hand with Laura, his 6-year-old daughter, toward the mall just a few blocks away off 57th Street. The little girl was hopping with excitement, her light pink dress peeking out from under her winter coat with every hurried step she took. Robert felt a tightness in his chest, the same way he always did when he looked into those lively brown eyes. They were Catherine's eyes, his wife's. It had been almost 2 years since she had passed, taken by an illness that had stolen not only her life, but also the innocence of their family. Laura had been very young when it all happened, just 4.5. She remembered her mother in a hazy way, in fragments of memories that Robert tried to keep alive through photos, stories, and constant conversation. Today would be different. Today he would fulfill the promise he'd made months ago, when Laura first saw that doll in the store window. A special modern doll that sang in 3 languages, danced, and told stories in different voices. The price was absurdly high, but Robert had saved up month by month. He worked as a civil engineer for a construction firm in downtown Manhattan, and despite a decent salary, it was hard to keep up with all the bills on his own. But to see that smile on his daughter's face, any sacrifice was worth it. The entrance to the mall was packed. Entire families carried colorful shopping bags, tired children cried, and salespeople shouted last-minute deals. The warm air inside brought immediate relief. Laura pulled her father's hand hard. She knew the way exactly. They had already been there 3 times just to look, just to make sure the doll was still there, waiting for her. The toy store was on the 2nd floor. Neon lights flashed in vibrant colors, announcing Christmas promotions. Children's music blared from the speakers. Laura took off as soon as they entered, her light-up sneakers blinking with every step. Robert followed her, smiling with that mix of joy and melancholy that had become a permanent part of his life. There she was, the doll. On the middle shelf, inside her transparent box, with that smile stamped on her plastic face. Laura stopped in front of it as if she were before something sacred. Her little hands touched the box gently, her eyes shining with pure happiness. Robert knelt beside his daughter, took the box and placed it in her hands. Laura hugged it to her chest so tightly he feared the box would get crushed. He saw tears forming in the little girl's eyes, and his own began to burn too. Catherine should have been there. She should have been seeing this. She should have been smiling. Beside them, taking pictures, planning the perfect Christmas they had always dreamed of having. It was at that moment that Laura looked to the side and saw him. A boy, smaller than her, maybe 4 years old, was standing next to a shelf full of robots and cars. He was staring intently at a large silver robot that had blue lights in its eyes and promised to talk and interact. His small hands touched the box with reverence, but his eyes carried something Laura recognized immediately. Sadness. That silent sadness of someone who has already understood that some wishes don't come true. Next to the boy was a young woman, probably in her early 30s. She wore a cleaning uniform under a worn-out sweater. Her face showed deep exhaustion, the dark circles under her eyes revealing sleepless nights. She knelt beside her son and spoke softly, her voice heavy with guilt and love. Laura couldn't hear the words, but she saw the scene. She saw the mother stroking the boy's hair, trying to console him. She saw the boy shaking his head, trying to be strong, trying not to cry. Laura's heart ached. She looked at the doll she was holding, then looked back at the boy. She tugged on her father's shirt sleeve urgently. Robert was lost in his own thoughts when he felt the pull. He looked down and saw the serious expression on his daughter's face. Laura had that look she got when she was determined about something, when nothing in the world could change her mind. "Daddy," the girl said, pointing discreetly at the boy and his mother. "Let's buy the toy for him too. Please." Robert followed his daughter's gaze and understood the situation immediately. He saw the woman getting up, taking the boy's hand, trying to lead him out of the store. He saw the boy's timid resistance, casting glances back at the robot that would never be his. Something moved inside Robert. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. He recognized that pain, that daily struggle, that superhuman effort to maintain dignity while the world seems to conspire against you. He had gone through it in the first few months after losing Catherine. The difference was that he had family, an established career, a support network. That woman seemed to be completely alone. Laura didn't wait for her father's answer. She left her doll in his arms and ran to the boy, who was already near the store's exit with his mother. The scene happened so fast that Robert barely had time to react. "Hey," Laura said, pulling on the hem of the boy's shirt. "Don't be sad. My dad is going to buy that robot for you." The woman turned around, startled. She looked at this unknown little girl, then at the man who was approaching quickly, still holding the doll's box. Her face turned red with embarrassment. "No, you don't have to," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "We were just looking. We're leaving now." Robert got closer and saw the fear in the woman's eyes. It wasn't wounded pride. It was pure shame, the kind of shame that eats you up inside, that makes you want to disappear. He knew that feeling. He had felt it himself when he had to accept help from his family in the early days. "Please," Robert said in the kindest voice he could manage. "It would be an honor. It's Christmas Eve. Let me do this for your son." The woman shook her head, her eyes already shining with unshed tears. "I can't accept. I don't know you, I can't." Laura knelt in front of the boy, who was watching everything with wide eyes. "What's your name?" she asked. "Leo," the boy answered softly. "I'm Laura. Look, Leo, I was really sad before I got my doll. Now I'm happy. You deserve to be happy too, everyone does." The simplicity of those words broke something inside the woman. She brought a hand to her face, trying to hide the tears that were starting to fall. Robert saw the exact moment she gave in, not because she wanted to, but because the love for her son was greater than any pride or shame. "Okay," she whispered, "but just the robot, just that one. I'll pay you back somehow." Robert shook his head. "I don't want you to pay for anything. This is a gift for Christmas, from the kids, for the kids." They walked back together to the robot shelf. Leo chose the same one he had seen before, the silver one with blue lights. When Robert placed the box in the boy's hands, the child hugged it as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Silent tears streamed down his little face. Robert looked around the store. There were so many toys, so many colors, so many possibilities. He thought about how often Laura only got one new toy, while other children had closets full of them. He thought about how unfair it was that some children spent Christmas with nothing, while others had more than they could ever use. He grabbed a remote control car and put it in the shopping cart. Then he picked up a building block set, some coloring books, colored pencils, a ball. The woman tried to protest with each new item, but Robert kept grabbing things, choosing carefully, imagining what Leo would like. Laura started helping too, picking out toys she thought the boy would enjoy. Soon the cart was full. The woman was paralyzed, unable to process what was happening. "Maria," she said suddenly. "My name is Maria." Robert smiled. "Nice to meet you, Maria. I'm Robert and this is Laura." They went to the checkout. The cashier scanned item after item and the total kept climbing. Robert didn't even look at the final amount. He swiped his card without hesitation. When the machine approved the transaction, he took all the bags and handed half of them to Laura to carry. At the store's exit, Leo held his robot box so carefully it seemed he was afraid of waking up from a dream. Laura walked beside him, already chatting about the toys, about Christmas, about everything and nothing with that ease only children have. Robert and Maria walked behind them in an uncomfortable silence. She still seemed to be in shock, trying to understand what had just happened. He was thinking about Catherine, about how she would have done the exact same thing if she were there. She'd always been generous, always one of Those people who couldn't see someone in need and just stand by. "Look," Robert said as they neared the food court. "The kids are getting along so well. How about we get some ice cream? It's freezing out there, but kids always want ice cream." Maria hesitated. "You've already done so much for us, I can't accept anything else. It's just ice cream, Maria. Look at them. They're already friends." It was true. Laura and Leo were already laughing together. Leo showing off his robot box and Laura showing off her doll box. There was something magical about that instant. Connection. That friendship born without effort, without judgment, without barriers. Maria gave in. They went to the ice cream parlor and sat at a table for 4. The children ordered huge sundaes with colorful toppings. The adults ordered coffees. While Leo and Laura smeared their faces with joy, Robert and Maria started to talk. It was difficult at first. Maria was clearly uncomfortable, still processing the kindness of this stranger. But slowly, as Robert talked about his life, about Laura, about the challenges of being a single father, she began to open up too. Maria explained that she worked as a cleaner on 2 different shifts. In the morning she cleaned offices downtown, and in the afternoon she cleaned a few houses in upscale neighborhoods. Leo stayed at a public daycare during the day, and at night he stayed with an elderly neighbor who charged very little to watch him. She had been abandoned by Leo's father during her pregnancy and had never heard from him again. Her family had cut ties with her when she got pregnant out of wedlock. She was completely alone in the world, just her and her son. The story came out in pieces, between pauses and downward glances, laden with a shame that shouldn't have existed. Robert listened in silence, feeling a mix of anger at the injustice and admiration for the woman's strength. She was surviving. Not just surviving, but raising a son, keeping him clean, polite, healthy. It was a Herculean feat. He told her about Catherine, about how she had been diagnosed with a serious illness when Laura was only 3. He told her about the treatments, about the hope that dwindled with each bad test result, about the day she finally found peace. He told her how hard it was to explain to a 4-year-old that her mother wasn't coming back, about the nights Laura cried for her mum, about how helpless and lost he felt. Their stories were different, but they carried the same weight. Loneliness, struggle, fear of the future, but also something more. Hope. The stubborn hope that makes you wake up every day and keep trying, keep believing that things can get better. The children finished their ice cream and asked to go to the indoor playground in the mall. Robert and Maria agreed, happy to have a few more minutes together. They sat on a bench where they could watch the 2 of them play. Leo and Laura already acted like siblings, she looking out for him on the bigger slides, he laughing at her silly antics. Robert looked at Maria. The sunlight coming through the skylight illuminated her face in a special way. He noticed she was beautiful, despite the evident exhaustion. She had dark brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, green eyes that sparkled when she talked about her son, and a shy but genuine smile. Maria felt his gaze and blushed slightly. It had been so long since someone had looked at her that way. Not with pity, not with vulgar desire, but with genuine interest, with respect. Time flew by. It was already getting dark when Robert looked at his watch. He had Christmas Eve dinner to prepare at home and still needed to stop by the grocery store for a few last-minute things. But he didn't want this moment to end. There was something special happening here, something he couldn't quite name yet. It was Laura who resolved the situation. She came running with Leo, both of them sweaty and happy. "Daddy," she said, "what if Leo and Aunt Maria have dinner with us tomorrow? It's Christmas. Nobody should be alone on Christmas." Maria turned red instantly. No, we can't. You've already done so much. I don't want to impose." "You won't be imposing at all," Robert said, and he realized he was speaking with complete sincerity. "I made way too much food like I always do. The house is big, there's plenty of room, and it would be really nice to have company. Laura's right. Nobody should spend Christmas alone." Maria looked at Leo, who was watching her with those hopeful eyes. She looked at Laura, who was smiling excitedly. She looked at Robert, who had a genuine expression of wanting her to come. Something inside her gave way. Something that had been hard and closed off for years began to soften. "Okay," she said softly. "We'll come, but I'm bringing something to contribute to the dinner." You don't need to bring anything, just the two of you. That's already the best gift." They exchanged phone numbers. Robert gave her his address. They arranged for 7 o'clock the next evening. When they said goodbye at the mall entrance, the children hugged like old friends who didn't want to part. Maria and Robert said goodbye with a handshake that lasted a second longer than necessary. On the way home, Laura couldn't stop talking about Leo, about how cool he was, about how happy she was that they were coming for dinner. Robert drove in silence, thinking about Maria, about the strength she showed, about the vulnerability she tried to hide. For the first time in almost 2 years, he felt something different in his chest. It wasn't physical attraction, not yet. It was connection. It was the feeling of having found someone who understood, someone who knew what it was like to carry the weight of the world alone. In her apartment in the Bronx, Maria put Leo to bed early. The boy was exhausted from all the excitement, but happy. He was hugging the robot box even in his sleep, a smile on his face. She watched him for long minutes, feeling a gratitude so deep it hurt. Then she went to the living room and called her only friend, Brenda, the neighbor who watched Leo. She told her everything that had happened, still not quite believing it herself. Brenda was moved and at the same time worried. "Be careful, honey," she said. "The world is full of bad people, but if they're really good people, enjoy it. You two deserve a little joy in your lives." Maria hung up and looked at the bags of toys Robert had bought. There were so many things. Leo would have a Christmas she could never have provided on her own. The tears started to fall, but this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Robert got home and helped Laura organize all the toys. She wanted to have everything ready to show Leo the next day. They talked about dinner, about what they would prepare. Laura was excited in a way he hadn't seen in months. Before bed, Laura did something she hadn't done since she was very little. She asked her father to pray with her. Robert wasn't particularly religious, but Catherine had been. She had taught Laura a few prayers when she was a baby. They knelt beside the bed, and Laura began to speak with that soft, sincere voice of children. "Thank you for giving me the doll I wanted. Thank you for giving me a new friend. Thank you for bringing Leo and Aunt Maria into our lives. I think Mommy sent them to us so we wouldn't be so lonely anymore. Take care of Mommy up in heaven and take care of us down here too. Amen." Robert had to hold himself back from crying right there. He hugged his daughter tightly, feeling a mix of pain and gratitude. Pain for Catherine's absence, gratitude for having this incredible girl in his life, and something more, a strange but good feeling, a kind of anticipation for the next day. That night, they both slept better than they had in a long time. Robert dreamed of Catherine, but this time it wasn't a sad dream. She was smiling, waving, looking peaceful. When he woke up in the middle of the night, he stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened that day. Maria also had trouble sleeping, but not from the anxiety she usually felt. It was excitement, nervousness, something she hadn't felt since before Leo was born. She got up several times to check if the few good clothes she had were clean and ironed. She wanted to make a good impression. She didn't know why, but she did. Christmas Day dawned sunny and cold, as was typical in New York that time of year. Robert woke up early and started preparing everything. He had bought a turkey, stuffing, rice pilaf, salads, desserts. The house began to fill with the wonderful smell of home-cooked food. Laura woke up and went straight to help, excited about the guests' arrival. Maria woke Leo up early too. They bathed, put on their best clothes. She made a simple pie to take, even though Robert had said she didn't need to. Her pride wouldn't let her arrive empty-handed, even knowing that the pie was nothing compared to everything Robert had done for them. They took 2 buses to get to the address. The house was in a middle-class neighborhood in Queens, tree-lined and quiet. It was a beautiful 2-story house with a front yard and a welcoming porch. Maria felt a pang in her chest, comparing it to her tiny apartment in the Bronx. But she pushed the thought away. This wasn't the time to feel inferior. It was time to be grateful and enjoy the moment. They rang the doorbell at exactly 7 o'clock. Robert opened the door with a wide smile, wearing a simple dress shirt and jeans. Laura appeared behind him and pulled Leo inside, already showing him the toys they had set out. Maria entered shyly, handing the pie to Robert. He thanked her sincerely, complimenting the wonderful smell. She looked around and saw a comfortable house, tastefully decorated, full of photos of Laura at various stages of her life. In some photos there was a beautiful woman beside them. It must have been Catherine. Dinner was served in the dining room. The table was set with a white tablecloth and lit candles. Everything was simple but done with care. They all sat together, Robert at one end, Maria at the other, and the children on the sides. Before they started eating, Laura asked if they could say a prayer. They held hands around the table. Robert found himself holding Leo's small hand in one of his and Maria's delicate hand in the other. He felt a shiver run down his spine. It had been so long since he had held a woman's hand like that. Laura began to speak, improvising a prayer in the way only children can. She thanked God for the food, the house, the new friends. She thanked him for meeting Leo. She mentioned her mother in heaven, asking that she be proud, and she finished by saying something that made all the adults choke up with emotion. "And thank you for bringing us a new family, because I think they're family now, amen." The dinner proceeded in a light and happy atmosphere. The children ate as if there were no tomorrow, trying everything. The adults talked, shared stories, laughed. Maria gradually relaxed, allowing herself to enjoy the moment without guilt. After dinner, they watched a Christmas movie in the living room. The children lay on the floor on cushions and blankets. Robert and Maria sat on the couch, maintaining a respectful distance, but aware of each other. During the movie, their hands accidentally touched when they both reached for the popcorn bowl at the same time. The touch was brief, but it left a mark. When the movie ended, the children were almost asleep. Maria said they had to go, it was getting late. Robert offered to drive them, but she refused. She said the bus was still running and she knew the way. "Well," he insisted, grabbing his car keys without taking no for an answer. On the way to Maria's place, the children slept in the back seat. The adults talked quietly, sharing thoughts about the day, about how special it had been. When they arrived at Maria's building, simple and worn down, she was embarrassed for a moment, but Robert just smiled and said that what mattered wasn't where you lived, but who you were. He helped carry Leo up to the third-floor apartment, as there was no elevator. Maria opened the door and he placed the boy on the bed. The apartment was tiny but impeccably clean. It had little furniture, but it was organized with care. At the door, before leaving, Robert held Maria's hand for a moment. "Thank you for coming," he said. "It was the best Christmas I've had in years." "I'm the one who should be thanking you," she replied. "You changed my son's life. You changed my life." "We'll see each other again," Robert said, and he realized it wasn't a question. It was a statement, a promise. Maria nodded, smiling. "Yes, we will." He walked down the stairs, feeling something strange in his chest. It was hope mixed with fear. Hope that something new could begin. Fear that he could get hurt again, that he could hurt Laura, that he could hurt these people who had just entered their lives. But one thing he knew, that meeting in the toy store hadn't been a coincidence. It was fate. It was the universe conspiring to bring together people who needed to be together. And for the first time in a long time, Robert allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, love could find its way back to him. Chapter 2. The days following Christmas brought a different routine for both families. Robert returned to work at the construction firm, but his thoughts constantly drifted to that special night. He found himself checking his phone more often than usual, hoping for a message from Maria. She also thought of him during her exhausting workdays, cleaning offices and houses, but always with a discreet smile on her lips as she remembered the kindness of that man. Laura talked about Leo every day. She asked when she would see her friend again, if she could call him, if she could visit him. Robert promised that yes, they would see each other soon, but he hoped Maria would take the initiative to get in touch. He didn't want to seem pushy or rushed. He knew she probably had fears, insecurities about this whole new connection. It was Maria who made the first move, 3 days after Christmas. She sent a simple text thanking him again for the wonderful evening and saying that Leo wouldn't stop asking about Laura. Robert replied immediately, suggesting a get-together in Central Park the following weekend. Maria accepted, feeling her heart race as she confirmed. Saturday dawned with an intensely blue sky, without a single cloud. Robert picked up Maria and Leo at her place at 10 in the morning. This time she accepted the ride without resistance, realizing that he genuinely liked to help, that there were no ulterior motives in his kindness. At the park, the children darted toward the playgrounds. Robert and Maria walked behind, keeping them in sight, but giving them the freedom to play. It was a beautiful winter day, crisp and sunny, and the park was full of families enjoying the weekend. They talked about everything and nothing. She told him more about her work, about the difficulties of balancing 2 jobs and still giving Leo enough attention. He talked about the challenges at the construction firm, about how it was sometimes hard to concentrate on work when Laura needed him at home. They shared funny stories about their children, moments of pride, moments of worry. As the hours passed, the conversation grew deeper. Robert spoke about Catherine in a way he had never been able to with anyone else. He told her what their relationship was like, about the dreams they had for the future, about how everything fell apart when the diagnosis came. He spoke of the guilt he felt for not being able to save her, the anger he had at God and the world, the void she left behind. Maria listened to him attentively, without interrupting, without judging. When he finished, she placed her hand on his for a moment, a simple gesture but one filled with understanding. She had her demons too. She had her guilt. Guilt for getting involved with the wrong man, for believing his promises, for bringing Leo into a world where she could barely provide the basics. "But you can't think like that," Robert said firmly. "You're incredible. Look at Leo. He's happy, he's healthy, he's polite. You're doing a wonderful job on your own. Don't blame yourself for things that are out of your control." Robert's words touched Maria deeply. It had been so long since anyone had acknowledged her effort, since anyone had seen beyond the poverty and the difficulties. She felt tears forming and tried to hide them, but Robert saw. He put his arm around her shoulders, a brotherly, comforting hug. In that embrace, something changed. It wasn't sudden passion or overwhelming attraction. It was a real deep connection. It was the feeling of having found someone who understood, someone who didn't judge, someone who saw beyond the scars and perceived the beauty that still existed. The children came running back, sweaty and happy, asking for ice cream. They went to a nearby vendor and sat at a table under a large tree. Leo and Laura chatted excitedly about the playground, making plans for their next games. Robert and Maria exchanged glances, smiling as they watched the pure friendship blossoming between the 2 little ones. After the park, Robert suggested they have lunch together. They went to a simple but tasty diner nearby. During lunch, the children made a bold proposal. "Why can't we play together every weekend?" Laura asked with that irrefutable childhood logic. "We really like being together." Leo agreed enthusiastically. "Yeah, Aunt Maria, please." The adults looked at each other. Robert saw the hesitation in Maria's eyes. He knew she was scared, afraid of creating expectations, of getting too close and then getting hurt. But there was also hope there, the desire to say yes, to allow herself to have this in her life. "I think that's a great idea," Robert said, looking at Maria. "If Maria agrees, of course." Maria looked at Leo, at that hopeful little face. She looked at Laura, who already treated her with such affection. She looked at Robert, who had entered their lives like an angel sent from heaven. How could she say no to all of this? "Okay," she said, smiling. "Every weekend, then." The children celebrated as if they had just won the lottery. The adults laughed, but inside they felt something more. They were making a commitment there, even if they didn't verbalize it. A commitment to be present, to build something together even if it was just a deep friendship. In the following weeks, the routine was established. Every Saturday, Robert would pick up Maria and Leo, and they would spend the day together. They went to parks, museums, the movies, the zoo, the aquarium. The children grew closer and closer, and so did the adults. Robert began to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time, that flutter in his stomach when he saw Maria, that desire to be near her, to hear her voice, to make her smile. Maria felt it too. At night, when she put Leo to bed, she would find herself thinking about Robert, about the gentle way he treated people, the caring way he looked after Laura, the genuine interest he showed in her life. She started to dress up more on the weekends, to wear lipstick, to let down the hair she always kept in a practical bun. She wanted to feel beautiful, desirable. A month after Christmas, during a walk in the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, the moment they had both been expecting and dreading at the same time arrived. The children had wandered off a bit, watching butterflies in a flower garden. Robert and Maria were sitting on a bench, enjoying the shade of an old tree. "Maria," Robert began, his voice slightly trembling, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him, her heart pounding. "What is it?" I really like being with you. And it's not just because of Laura and Leo. It's because of you. I like you." The words hung in the air for a few seconds. Maria felt her face grow warm, her chest tighten. She wanted to say she felt the same, but fear paralyzed her. Fear of not being good enough for him. Fear of messing everything up. Fear of letting herself go and then losing it all. Robert saw her hesitation and continued. "I know it's early. I know we're still getting to know each other. And I don't want to pressure you. I just wanted you to know that what I feel is real. You make me want to believe in love again." Maria felt the tears rolling down her cheeks before she even realized she was crying. "Robert, I feel something for you too. But I'm scared. I'm scared I'm not enough. You're an incredible man. You have a stable life, you're educated, you're kind. And I'm just a cleaning lady, with a son and a lot of problems." Robert held her hands firmly. "You're not just anything. You're extraordinary. You're strong. You're hard-working. You're an amazing mother. You face the world every day with your head held high. I admire you more than you can imagine." The words broke through Maria's last resistance. She let herself be held by Robert, allowing herself to feel that comfort, that warmth. They stayed like that for long minutes, just holding each other, feeling each other's heartbeats, with no rush, no expectations beyond that moment. The children came running back and saw the two of them embracing. Laura smiled with satisfaction, as if she had just confirmed a suspicion. Leo looked confused but happy. They were beginning to understand that something special was happening between the adults. That afternoon marked a turning point in their relationship. From then on, Robert and Maria stopped pretending they were just friends. They began to allow themselves more intimate touches, longer gazes, deeper conversations about the future. It wasn't just about the children anymore. It was about the two of them, too. Robert started helping Maria in practical ways. He offered to pay for a private health insurance, planned for her and Leo. Maria initially refused, but he insisted, saying it was important for them to have access to good doctors. She eventually gave in, not because of his stubbornness, but because she knew Leo needed it. He also started picking Leo up from daycare sometimes when Maria was working late. Laura loved it when her little brother, as she now called Leo, came to their house. They did their homework together, played, had dinner. Robert noticed how Leo blossomed with that attention, with that family structure he had never had. Maria, in turn, began to help with Laura in ways Robert hadn't expected. She would gently comb the girl's hair, teaching her how to make braids. She talked to her about girl things, about school, about friends, about feelings. Laura opened up to Maria in a way she didn't with her father. There were things that only a mother figure could understand and embrace. The children began to verbalize what everyone already knew. Leo called Robert Uncle Robert, but sometimes by accident he would say Daddy and then quickly correct himself, embarrassed. Robert would always smile and say it was okay, that he could call him whatever he wanted. Laura did the same with Maria, slipping from auntie to mommy in moments of distraction. In February, 2 months after they met in the store, something happened that changed everything. Robert was promoted at work to project manager with a significant salary increase. His first reaction was to call Maria and tell her the news. She was genuinely happy for him, celebrating as if it were her own victory. To celebrate, he organized a special dinner. He booked an elegant Italian restaurant on the Upper East Side, hired a babysitter to stay with the children at his house, and invited Maria for a date, a real date as a couple. Maria was nervous. She didn't have the right clothes for a restaurant like that. Brenda, her neighbor and friend, lent her a simple but elegant black dress. She got ready carefully, put on makeup, and let her hair down in soft waves. When Robert arrived to pick her up, He was speechless when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice thick with sincerity. The restaurant was sophisticated but cozy. Candles on the tables, soft background music, attentive waiters. Maria felt out of place at first, watching the other patrons with their expensive clothes and sophisticated conversations. But Robert made her feel at ease, talking naturally, making her laugh, treating her like the most important person in the world. During dinner, Robert made an unexpected proposal. "Maria, I know you work so hard, 2 shifts every day, and I know you do it for Leo because you want to give him a better life. But what about you? When do you have time for yourself?" Maria smiled sadly. "Time for me? That doesn't exist in my life. But it's okay. It's what has to be. Done? What if it didn't have to be that way?" he said, his voice careful. "What if you could work less, have more time with Leo, take better care of your health?" Maria didn't understand where he was going with this. "Robert, that would be wonderful, but it's not reality. I can't just work less. The bills don't pay themselves." Robert took a deep breath. "I know. But I can help. I want to help. With the promotion, my salary went up a lot. I can give you a monthly allowance, something to supplement your income and allow you to quit one of your jobs." Maria was stunned. She looked at him as if he had said something absurd. No, Robert, I can't accept that. I can't take your money. What would that make me? Your mistress? Your charity case?" Her voice came out louder than intended, and a few people turned to look. Robert leaned across the table, taking her hands. "That's not how I see it," he said firmly. "I see it as taking care of someone I love. Yes, Maria, I love you. And when you love someone, you want to see them happy. You want to help. You want to make their life lighter. Please let me do this for you." The words, "I love you," echoed in Maria's mind. No one had ever said that to her. Not Leo's father, who had promised so many things but disappeared at the first sign of responsibility. Not her family, who had abandoned her when she needed them most. No one had ever truly loved her. "I don't know if I can accept that," she said, tears starting to fall. "I don't know if I deserve it. You deserve this and so much more. And you don't. Have to decide now. Just think about it, okay? Think about the possibility of having a slightly easier life, of spending more time with Leo, of taking care of your health. It's not charity, Maria. It's love." The dinner continued in a thoughtful silence. Maria was processing everything, fighting against her pride and fear, but also feeling an almost desperate urge to accept, to finally let someone take care of her too. On the way back, Robert stopped the car at a scenic overlook with a view of the illuminated city. They stood there looking at the lights of New York twinkling in the night, in a comfortable silence. "Robert," Maria said finally, "I love you too. I'm scared to admit it. I'm scared it's too soon, but I love you. You came into my life when I needed it most, when I had already given up on believing that good things could happen to me." Robert pulled her into a hug. They stayed like that for long minutes, just holding on, feeling each other's warmth. Then, slowly, he pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. He saw permission there. He leaned in and kissed her. It was a soft kiss, almost shy at first. Lips recognizing, exploring, discovering. But it soon deepened, carrying all the pent-up emotion of those weeks of getting closer. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless, their eyes shining. "That was the first time I've kissed someone since Catherine," Robert confessed. "That was the first time someone has kissed me with love," Maria replied. "Leo's father never kissed me like that, never made me feel like this." They returned home in a state of happiness mixed with nervousness. They knew that kiss changed everything, that from that point on, there was no turning back. They were surrendering to something bigger, something that could either heal them or hurt them even more. In the following weeks, their relationship solidified. Robert and Maria officially became a couple. They told the children, who reacted with explosive joy. Laura jumped, screamed, and hugged them both. Leo was shy but happy, his little eyes shining with hope. Maria finally accepted Robert's help. She quit her afternoon shift, keeping only her morning job. With more free time, she could finally breathe. She started picking Leo up from daycare every day. She cooked more elaborate meals. She took better care of herself, went to the doctor for the first time in years and started exercising. The transformation was visible. Maria became lighter, more cheerful. The dark circles under her eyes faded. Her face regained a glow that had been lost long ago. Robert watched the change with deep satisfaction. Knowing he was making a real difference in her life filled him with purpose. The four of them began to spend entire weekends together. Sometimes they went to Robert's house. Sometimes they stayed at Maria's apartment. The children adapted perfectly, acting like blood siblings. They shared toys, fought sometimes, as siblings do, but always made up quickly. Robert started taking Leo with him on guy activities. He taught him how to ride a bike, played catch in the park, watched superhero movies. He saw how the boy flourished with that fatherly attention. Leo was smart, curious, affectionate. He had so much potential. He just needed an opportunity. Maria, for her part, embraced the role of a mother figure for Laura. The girl desperately needed it. They talked about her biological mother, about how much she missed her, about the memories. Maria never tried to replace Catherine, but she offered something Laura urgently needed: a mother's hug, a shoulder to cry on, a soft voice to soothe her on difficult nights. In March, 3 months after their initial meeting, Robert made an important decision. He called Maria for a serious conversation one Sunday afternoon while the children were playing in Laura's room. "Maria," he began, holding her hands, "these last few months have been the happiest of my life since I lost Catherine. You and Leo have brought light to our home. You've brought love, you've brought life. Laura is happier than ever, and I feel whole again." Maria smiled, feeling her heart race. "I feel that too. You've completely changed our lives." Robert took a deep breath. "So I was thinking, why are we still living in separate houses? Why do we keep up this back and forth? What if we lived together? The four of us, a real family." Maria was speechless. It was everything she wanted to hear, but it was also terrifying. Living together was a huge step. It meant real commitment, total surrender. Robert saw her hesitation. "I know it's a big step, but I'm sure I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up with you every day. I want to raise our children together. I want to build a future by your side." Tears rolled down Maria's face. "Yes," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, I want that too. I want to live with you. I want to be a real family." They hugged, crying with joy. The children heard the conversation from the slightly open door and came running in, jumping with happiness. They all hugged right there, the four of them, forming a circle of love and hope. Chapter 3. The decision to live together brought an avalanche of changes and emotions. Robert suggested they look for a new house, a place that would be theirs, without previous memories, where they could all start fresh. Maria agreed, excited about the possibility of helping choose and decorate a home that would truly be hers. They spent weeks visiting houses in different neighborhoods of New York City. They wanted something spacious enough for the children to have their own rooms, but also a place with a backyard where they could play outside. Robert's budget allowed for a comfortable house, and he insisted that Maria have a say in every decision. They found the perfect place in April, in a quiet residential area in Queens. It was a 3-bedroom house with a large living room, a modern kitchen, and a backyard with fruit trees. It even had a small space that could be turned into an office for Robert to work from home when needed. The children fell in love with it immediately, running from room to room, planning where they would put their toys. The move was scheduled for early May. Maria didn't have much to bring from her apartment, just clothes, some simple furniture, and Leo's toys. Robert made sure to keep some of her pieces so she would feel truly at home. They bought new furniture together, choosing every detail with care. Laura and Leo decorated their own rooms. Laura chose a princess and unicorn theme, with light pink walls and lavender curtains. Leo wanted a superhero room, with posters of Spider-Man and Captain America. They set up a third room to be a shared playroom, with shelves full of books, games, and toys. The first day in the new house was exciting and chaotic. Boxes were scattered everywhere, furniture was being assembled, and the children were running around exploring every corner. That night, when they finally managed to organize the bare minimum, they all sat on the floor of the empty living room, eating pizza straight from the box, laughing at the mess around them. "This is perfect," Laura said, her mouth full of pizza. "We're a real family now," Leo agreed enthusiastically, hugging the robot Robert had bought on that fateful day at the mall. "This was the best present I ever got. Not the robot, but you guys, our family." The adults looked at each other, moved. They were building something beautiful here. Something that was worth every moment of fear and uncertainty they had faced to get there. The first few days of living together were an adjustment, establishing routines, dividing chores, learning each other's habits. Maria would wake up early to make breakfast for everyone before she left for work. Robert would take the kids to school on his way to the office. In the afternoon, Maria would pick them both up, help with homework, and prepare dinner. It was a routine that worked, that brought structure and security to everyone. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments of tension, of adjustment, of small but significant conflicts. Maria sometimes felt out of place in such a beautiful house, afraid she wasn't good enough. Robert was sometimes overly protective of Laura, forgetting that Maria also had the right to discipline her. The children fought as siblings do, and it was sometimes difficult to mediate their conflicts without seeming to favor one over the other. The first serious fight happened in June, 2 months after the move. Leo had accidentally broken a figurine that had belonged to Catherine, a porcelain ballerina that Laura treasured. The girl was inconsolable, crying and screaming at her brother. Leo locked himself in his room, fear and guilt crushing his little heart. Robert, without thinking, scolded Leo more harshly than usual. Maria defended her son, saying it was an accident, that Robert was overreacting. The argument escalated quickly. Harsh words were exchanged on both sides. Robert accused Maria of being too permissive. Maria accused Robert of favoring Laura in every situation. The children heard the fight from their rooms, terrified. They had never seen the adults fight like that. Laura cried even harder, afraid that everything was falling apart. Leo was paralyzed with fear, thinking it was all his fault, that he would be sent away, that he would lose this family he loved so much. The fight ended with Robert going out for a walk and Maria locked in their bedroom, crying. They both felt terrible, not just because of the argument, but because they had scared the children, because they had let their insecurities take over. Robert came back 2 hours later. He found Maria in the living room, her eyes red from crying. He sat next to her in silence for long minutes. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I overreacted. It wasn't about the figurine, it was about Catherine, about feeling like I'm losing her again. I know it's irrational, but sometimes it still hurts so much." Maria took his hand. "I need to apologize too. I got defensive because I'm afraid you think I'm not a good mother to Leo, that I can't raise him right, and I projected that onto you." They talked for hours, peeling back layers of fear and insecurity. Robert spoke about the guilt he still felt regarding Catherine, about how he sometimes thought he was betraying her memory by being happy with Maria. Maria spoke about her constant fear of not being good enough, of Robert one day waking up and realizing he had made a mistake by being with her. They were difficult, painful conversations, but necessary. In the end, they held each other tightly, making a silent pact to be more honest about their feelings, to communicate better, to work as a team instead of as adversaries. Afterward, they went together to the children's rooms. They found Laura and Leo in her room, hugging on the bed, both with swollen eyes from crying. The adults' hearts broke at the sight. They sat on the bed with them, and Robert was the first to speak. "We're sorry, kids. We're sorry we fought like that. Adults make mistakes too. They get angry sometimes. But what's important is that we love each other, and we'll always find a way to work things out," Maria added, stroking Leo's hair. "And Leo, sweetie, it wasn't your fault. It was an accident. No one is going to send you away. You are part of this family forever, no matter what." Laura hugged Leo tightly. "I forgive you, bro. You didn't mean to. And even if you did, you're more important than any figurine." That night they all slept together in Robert and Maria's king-sized bed, huddled together like a real family, finding comfort in each other's warmth. It was a moment of healing, of recognizing that they would make mistakes, but that their love was stronger than any conflict. After that episode, their communication improved significantly. Robert started seeing a therapist, working through his grief over Catherine's loss in a healthier way. Maria also began therapy, dealing with her issues of self-esteem and abandonment. The sessions helped them understand themselves and each other better. In July, Robert proposed something he had been thinking about for weeks. "Maria, what if we got married? For real. Not because of pressure, not because society expects it, but because I want to. I want you to be my wife. I want to make our family official." Maria was surprised. They had only known each other for 6 months. It was fast, very fast by normal standards, but nothing about their relationship had been normal from the start. They had skipped several steps, had dived in head first, and it was working. "But are you sure?" she asked, her voice trembling. 6 months is a short time. What if you change your mind? What if— "I'm not going to change my mind," Robert interrupted firmly. "I know it's fast. But when you know, you know. And I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want Leo to legally be my son. I want us to be a family in the eyes of the law, too." Maria felt tears welling up. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I want to marry you. I want to be your wife. I want us to be a complete family." They set the wedding for September, giving them enough time to organize everything. It wouldn't be a big ceremony, just close family and friends in a small event hall. What mattered was the meaning, not the pomp. Robert also began the process of adopting Leo. He wanted the boy to have his last name, to be legally responsible for him. Maria was moved by the gesture, understanding the weight it carried. Robert was committing completely, leaving no room for doubt. The children were ecstatic about the wedding news. Laura said she wanted to be the flower girl. Leo said he wanted to be the ring bearer. Robert and Maria agreed, thinking it was perfect for their children to have important roles in the ceremony. July and August were filled with preparations. Maria chose a simple but beautiful white dress with delicate embroidery. Robert bought a new suit. The children got party clothes, Laura in a light pink dress and Leo in a miniature suit that made him look like a little gentleman. They invited only close people. A few of Robert's colleagues, Brenda, the neighbor who had helped Maria so much, and a few family friends. Robert's mother and brother who had welcomed Maria and Leo with genuine warmth. It was a small group but full of love and support. The week before the wedding was intense. Maria was nervous, checking every detail over and over. Robert tried to keep her calm, but he was anxious himself. It wasn't nervousness about the marriage itself, but about the enormity of the moment, the awareness that they were starting something permanent. The night before the wedding, Robert and Maria talked in the backyard, under the stars. The children were already asleep and they finally had a moment of peace. "Do you have any doubts?" Robert asked, holding her hands. "Any fears?" Maria thought for a moment. "I'm afraid of disappointing you, afraid of not being the wife you deserve, but I have no doubts about loving you, that I know with absolute certainty." Robert pulled her into a hug. "You will never disappoint me. You are exactly what I need, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." They kissed there, under the stars, sealing promises they would make official the next day. It was a kiss filled with love, hope, and gratitude. Gratitude for having found each other in that toy store. Gratitude for the courage to surrender to each other. Gratitude for the chance to rebuild their lives together. The wedding day dawned sunny and beautiful. The ceremony was set for 4 in the afternoon, in a small event hall near their house. Maria woke up early, nervous but happy. Brenda came to help her get ready, styling her hair in an elegant bun with a few loose curls, helping with the soft but beautiful makeup. When Maria put on the dress, Brenda started to cry. "You look beautiful, honey, so beautiful and so happy. I always knew your better days would come." Leo walked into the room and his jaw dropped when he saw his mother. "Mommy, you look like a princess." Maria knelt and hugged her son. "I'm happy, my love, so happy. And you, are you ready to be my ring bearer?" Leo showed her the small pillow where the rings were attached. "I am. I'm going to do a great job." At the house, Robert was getting ready with Laura's help. She insisted on helping him with his tie, even though she didn't really know how. He let her, amused by the serious concentration on her little face. "Daddy," Laura said as she adjusted the crooked tie, "do you think Mommy in heaven is happy about all this?" The question caught Robert by surprise. He stopped and thought carefully about his answer. "I think so, sweetie. I think your mum wants us to be happy, and Maria makes us happy, doesn't she?" "She does. I love Aunt Maria. I mean, Mommy Maria. Can I call her Mommy?" Robert felt his heart tighten. "Of course you can, if you want to. If it feels true to you, you can." Laura smiled and continued to fix her father's tie, which was getting more and more crooked. He didn't have the heart to say anything, letting her finish her masterpiece. They arrived at the event hall at 3:30. The place was decorated with simplicity and good taste. White flowers everywhere, chairs lined up, a small makeshift altar at the front. Soft music played in the background. The guests began to arrive. Everyone greeted Robert with hugs and words of encouragement. His mother, Helen, was emotional, saying that Catherine would be happy to see her son rebuilding his life. When Maria arrived, everyone stood up. She walked down the aisle on Leo's arm, who carried the pillow with the rings. Laura followed right behind, scattering rose petals in their path. Maria walked slowly, her eyes fixed on Robert, who was waiting for her at the front. Robert felt his breath catch when he saw her. She was beautiful, radiant, her eyes shining with happiness and unshed tears. When she finally reached the altar, he took her hands and whispered, just for her to hear, "You're perfect." The ceremony was simple, but emotional. The officiant spoke about love, about second chances, about how life always finds a way to surprise us when we least expect it. He spoke about how Robert and Maria had found each other in a moment of mutual need and built something beautiful together. It was time for the vows. Robert went first, his voice choked with emotion. "Maria, I promise to be your partner in all moments, in the good days and the difficult ones. I promise to respect you, support you, and love you unconditionally. I promise to be the best father I can be to Leo and Laura. I promise to build a home full of love, laughter, and security for our family. I promise to remind you every day of how special you are, of how much you deserve to be happy." Maria could barely speak through her tears. "Robert, you saved me when I thought there was no salvation possible. You and Laura brought light into our lives when everything seemed dark. I promise to love and respect you. I promise to be the best wife and mother I can be. I promise to honor Catherine's memory and never try to erase the love you shared. I promise to build this future by your side with courage, with faith, and with so much love." The officiant asked for the rings. Leo brought the pillow with great care, proud of his important role. Robert and Maria placed the rings on each other's fingers, their hands trembling with emotion. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said, smiling. "You may kiss the bride." The kiss was met with applause and tears from all the guests. The children ran and hugged them both, creating a perfect family circle. It was a moment of pure joy, a celebration not just of a union but of a family that had formed, against all odds. The reception that followed was lively but intimate. Good food, music, conversation, and laughter. Robert and Maria awkwardly danced the first dance, laughing at their own clumsy steps. Then they called Laura and Leo to dance with them, the four of them in a group hug in the middle of the dance floor. That night, when they returned home as husband and wife, they put the children to bed and sat in the backyard, still in their wedding clothes, just savoring the moment. "We did it," Maria said, her head resting on Robert's shoulder. "We really did." "Tilota, we did," he agreed. "And this is just the beginning. We're going to build a beautiful life together, I promise." Chapter 4. The months following the wedding brought a new and comforting routine for the family. Robert and Maria established clear roles in raising the children, always respecting each other's individuality, but acting as a unit. Mornings started early, with a family breakfast before everyone left for their activities. Evenings ended with bedtime stories, hugs, and goodnight kisses. Leo blossomed in an impressive way. With the emotional and financial stability he now had, his performance in school improved significantly. He had always been smart, but now he had the time and resources to develop his potential. Robert helped him with his math homework, Maria with his English. He started taking swimming lessons and discovered a passion for the sport. Laura was different too, more confident, happier, more complete. Having Maria as a mother figure filled a void she didn't even know existed. They talked about everything, from problems at school to her fears and dreams. Maria never tried to replace Catherine, but she offered something equally precious: presence, affection, attention. In October, a month after the wedding, Robert finalized the process of adopting Leo. On the day the judge signed the papers, the whole family went to the courthouse. When they left, Leo officially had Robert's last name. He was now Leo Miller. The boy held the document with reverence, looking at his full name written there. Then he cried, not from sadness but from a joy so deep it couldn't be put into words. Robert hugged him tightly, whispering promises to always be there, to always take care of him, to always love him as his son. "Now I have a real dad," Leo said between sobs. "A dad who won't leave, who really loves me." The words broke something inside everyone there. Maria was crying profusely. Laura held her brother's hand tightly. Robert could barely keep his composure, feeling the weight and beauty of that moment. To celebrate, they went to an expensive steakhouse for dinner, something that would have been impossible for Maria before. Leo ate until he couldn't anymore, trying everything, smiling non-stop. Laura sat beside him, explaining the different cuts of meat, acting like the protective older sister she had become. That night at home, Leo asked for something unusual. He wanted to change the photo he had on his nightstand. It was a picture of him and Maria taken on his 3rd birthday. He wanted to replace it with a photo of the whole family, taken on the wedding day, where they were all together, smiling, complete. Maria felt a pang in her heart, seeing her son put away that old photo. It was a piece of their life before Robert and Laura, a piece of suffering but also of struggle and survival. But she understood the meaning of Leo's gesture. He wasn't erasing the past, he was celebrating the present and the future. "Sweetie," she said, kneeling in front of him, "you don't have to keep that photo if you don't want to. But I want you to know that those hard times were important too. They made us who we are today. They taught us to value what we have now." Leo hugged his mother. "I know, Mommy, but now I'm happy, really happy. And I want to remember that every day when I wake up." November brought professional changes for Robert. He received an offer to manage a large project in Albany, a city about 150 miles from New York. It would be a 3-month job, requiring him to stay in the city during the week and only come back on weekends. The decision wasn't easy. Robert didn't want to be away from his family, especially now that everything was going so well. But it was a significant career opportunity, with a generous bonus at the end. The extra money could provide even greater security for the family, perhaps even allowing Maria to stop working completely if she wanted to. He talked to Maria about the offer. She understood the professional importance, but she also had her fears. It would be the first time they were apart since they met. What if things changed? What if the distance created problems? Robert held her hands firmly. "Nothing is going to change how I feel about you. 3 months will fly by, and I'll come home every weekend without fail. We'll talk every day on the phone, on video calls. It'll be okay." Maria agreed, trying to push away her fears. She knew she had to trust him, that she couldn't let her insecurities sabotage Robert's opportunities. He had given so much to her and Leo. It was only fair that she support him in his professional ambitions. Robert left for Albany on the first Monday of November. The goodbye was hard. Laura cried, clinging to her father. Leo was quiet, trying to be strong, but clearly sad. Maria kept her composure until he left, then let the tears fall. The first few days were strange. The house felt empty without Robert, even with Maria and the children there. The nights were the worst. Maria would lie in the big bed and miss his warmth beside her, his soft breathing as he slept, the morning hugs before they woke. Up. Robert called every night, talking to each of them individually. He asked about the children's day, about their homework, about their games. He talked to Maria about everything and nothing, just to hear her voice, to keep the connection alive. They had video calls on the weekends, and he showed them where he was working, the hotel where he was staying. The weeks went by. Maria discovered a strength she didn't know she had. She managed the house alone, took care of the children, kept everything running. She found that she was capable, that she could trust herself. This boosted her self-esteem in a way she hadn't expected. The children adapted too. They learned to value the weekends even more when their father came home. They planned special activities, wanting to make the most of every second with him. Robert would arrive on Friday nights tired but happy, and spend all of Saturday and Sunday dedicated exclusively to his family. In mid-November, something happened that tested the strength of the new family. Laura started having recurring nightmares. She would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, calling for her mother, Catherine. Maria would rush to calm her down, but the girl would sometimes reject her, saying between sobs that she wanted her real mom, her biological mom. The words hurt Maria, even though she knew Laura wasn't in her right mind when she said them. She tried not to take it personally, tried to understand that the girl was processing complex emotions, but it was hard not to feel like she was failing, that she wasn't good enough. She called Robert in a panic after a particularly difficult night. He listened to everything, his own voice heavy with worry and guilt for not being there. He suggested they take Laura to a child psychologist, someone who specialized in grief. Maria agreed, scheduling an appointment for the following week. The psychologist, Dr. Peterson, was a blessing. She talked with Laura in several sessions, helping her process the loss of her mother and the changes in her life. She explained that it was normal to feel guilty for being happy when someone we love is no longer here. She helped Laura understand that loving Maria didn't mean forgetting Catherine, that her heart was big enough for both loves. The sessions also included conversations with the whole family. Dr. Peterson helped Maria not to take Laura's rejections personally, explaining that they were manifestations of pain, not truth. She helped Robert better balance the memory of Catherine with the present reality of Maria. She helped Leo express his own fears of abandonment. Slowly, Laura got better. The nightmares became less frequent and less intense. She started to open up more to Maria about her memories of Catherine, and Maria learned to honor them instead of feeling threatened by them. They created a small memorial with photos of Catherine in Laura's room, a space where she could connect with her mother's memory, whenever she needed to. One day, after a particularly good session, Laura hugged Maria and said something that changed everything. "I love you, Mommy Maria. You're not Mommy Catherine, but you're my mommy too. And it's okay to have two mummies, one in heaven and one here with me." Maria hugged the girl tightly, crying with emotion and relief. It was the acceptance she so desperately needed to hear, the confirmation that she had a real and important place in this child's life. December arrived, bringing the end of Robert's project in Albany. He returned home for good in the first week of the month, greeted with tight hugs and tears of joy. The family was stronger now, tested by distance and emotional challenges, but firm in their commitment to one another. Christmas was approaching, and it would be their first as an officially married and complete family. Robert and Maria decided to do something special. They would spend the holiday at a resort on the Jersey Shore. It would be their first family vacation, a chance to create new memories together. The trip was magical. The children played in the sand, swam in the ocean, and built elaborate castles. Robert and Maria walked hand in hand along the beach at sunset, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. At night, they had dinner together at the resort, talking and laughing, feeling the peace of that perfect moment. On Christmas Eve, they sat on the resort balcony after the children were asleep. The sea breeze brought a pleasant coolness, and the stars shone brightly in the dark sky. "Do you remember a year ago?" Maria said, looking at the stars. "We didn't even know each other. I was desperate, alone, with no prospect of things getting better. And I was trapped in my grief," Robert added, "thinking I would never be happy again, that life was over when Catherine passed." Maria turned to look at him. "Do you think it was fate? Or just luck?" Robert thought for a moment. "I think it was a combination of both. But it was also a choice. We chose to open up. We chose to trust. We chose to build this together. Fate put us in the same place. but we were the ones who decided what to do with it." They were silent for a while, just enjoying each other's presence. Then Robert said something he had been thinking about for weeks. "Maria, I want us to have another child, a child of our own, who carries a little of me and a little of you. What do you think?" Maria was surprised. She hadn't thought about it. She was so focused on taking care of Laura and Leo that the possibility of having another child hadn't even crossed her mind. But hearing Robert say that, she felt a wave of joy. Yes, it would be perfect. It would be the final consolidation of their family, a symbol of their love. "I would love that," she said, smiling. "I would love to have a baby with you." They kissed there under the stars, sealing another promise, another shared dream. Christmas Day dawned beautifully. They exchanged simple but meaningful gifts on the sandy beach. Robert gave Maria a delicate necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. Maria gave him a watch she had been saving up for months to buy. For the children, toys they knew they would love. But the most special gift came from Laura. She had made, with Maria's help without Robert knowing, a family photo album. It had pictures from that first day at the mall, through the previous Christmas, the move to the new house, the wedding, and all the special moments throughout the year. On the last page she had written in her still slightly crooked, childish handwriting, "This is my family. Daddy Robert, Mommy Maria, me and my brother Leo. I love you all so much. Thank you for making me happy again. Thank you for bringing Leo and Mommy Maria into our lives. Mommy Catherine sent you to us. I know it. And I know she's happy in heaven watching us be a real family." Robert couldn't hold back the tears as he read it. Maria cried, hugging Laura. Leo hugged everyone, trying to create a giant group hug. There, on that Christmas morning on the beach, under the warm winter sun, they were the perfect picture of a family that had been formed from broken pieces, but was now stronger than ever. They returned to New York after New Year's, refreshed and happy. January brought the news they were hoping for. Maria was pregnant. They found out together in the privacy of their bedroom, looking at the test with 2 lines. They hugged and cried with pure, absolute joy. They told the children the next day. Laura screamed with happiness, already planning everything she would do for her little brother or sister. Leo was quieter, processing the information, but then he smiled and hugged his mother, saying he would be the best big brother in the world. The following months were filled with preparation and anticipation. Maria stopped working, focusing on taking care of herself and the pregnancy. Robert was even more attentive and caring. The children helped decorate the baby's room, choosing colors and furniture, discussing names. The pregnancy was smooth. Maria had all her checkups, took care of her health, and rested when she needed to. They found out it would be a girl. They decided to name her Helen, in honor of Robert's mother, who had supported them so much. In August, almost 2 years after that fateful meeting in the mall, Helen was born. She was small, perfect, with a tuft of dark hair and eyes that promised to be green like her mother's. Robert cried as he held her for the first time, feeling an emotion he hadn't felt since Laura's birth. Maria was exhausted but radiant. She looked at the baby in her arms and couldn't believe everything that had happened in the last 2 years. From a single mother struggling to survive, she had become a beloved wife, a mother of 3, the owner of a beautiful home, part of a real and solid family. Laura and Leo visited their sister in the hospital. Laura held her with great care, amazed by the tiny little being. She promised to teach her little sister everything she knew, to always protect her. Leo touched her with reverence, awestruck by how tiny she was. He promised to always be a present and caring brother. Robert watched the scene with his heart overflowing. There was his family, a family that had been formed in the most unlikely way possible, but that was real, strong, and full of love. Catherine would always have a place in his heart and in Laura's life, but now he had found a new love, a new chance to be happy. When they returned home from the hospital, the routine changed again. There was a baby now, with all the demands a newborn brings. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, cries that wouldn't stop. But there were also laughs, hugs, the sweet baby smell, the toothless smile that appeared after a few months. Laura and Leo helped as much as they could. They brought diapers, made their little sister laugh, sang her to sleep. It was a family working in perfect sync, each contributing what they could, each taking care of the other. In December of that year, 3 years after their initial meeting, the family was gathered in the living room decorated for Christmas. Helen, now 4 months old, was in Maria's lap. Laura and Leo, now much bigger and more mature, played with their toys. Robert was preparing Christmas dinner in the kitchen, humming Christmas carols. Maria looked around and felt a gratitude so deep it ached in her chest. It all felt like a dream. 3 years ago, she was in a toy store, with no money to buy anything for her son, with no hope that life could get better. And now here she was in a beautiful house with a husband who loved her, with 3 healthy and happy children, with security and peace. Robert came out of the kitchen and sat next to her. He took Helen in his arms, making funny faces that made her squeal with delight. He looked at Maria and saw tears in her eyes. "Why are you crying?" he asked, concerned. "I'm happy," she replied. "I'm crying because I'm happy, so happy, happier than I ever thought possible." Robert pulled her into a one-armed hug as the other held the baby. "Me too. You gave me my life back. You gave me a reason to wake up smiling every day. You gave me a real family." Laura and Leo joined the hug, creating that family circle that had become their trademark. There, embraced, they were living, proof that miracles exist. Not the grand miracles of lights and angels, but the subtle ones disguised as chance encounters, unexpected kindness, and the courage to open up again. That night, during dinner, they made a toast. Robert raised his glass of juice, since Maria was still breastfeeding and not drinking alcohol, and gave a speech. "I wanted to give thanks for everything that has happened in the last 3 years, to thank Maria for accepting my invitation that first Christmas, for trusting me, for giving me a second chance at love, to thank Leo for bringing joy and new life to our home, to thank Laura for having such a big, generous heart, for being the one who suggested buying that toy for Leo that day. If it weren't for you, sweetie, none of this would have happened. And to thank Helen for completing our family in a way we didn't even know it was incomplete." They all clinked their glasses, the children with their cups of juice, in a toast to family, to love, to life. It was a perfect, crystalline moment, the kind that gets etched in your memory forever. Later, when the children were asleep and Helen was in her crib in the master bedroom, Robert and Maria sat on the living room couch, just enjoying the silence and each other's presence. "Do you regret anything?" Robert asked suddenly. Maria thought for a moment. "I regret taking so long to accept your help at the beginning. I regret not trusting myself more sooner. But I don't regret anything that has happened since we met. What about you?" "I regret taking so long to let Catherine go. Not in the sense of forgetting her, but in the sense of allowing myself to be happy again. But other than that, no. Every moment was necessary for us to get here." They sat in silence, reflecting on their journey. It had been long, difficult at times, full of challenges and fears, but it had been worth every tear, every moment of uncertainty, because it had led them here, to this beautiful family, to this deep and true love. "Do you think Laura was right?" Maria asked. "Do you think Catherine sent us to you?" Robert smiled. "I like to think so. I like to believe she's at peace, that she saw Laura needed a mother and I needed a partner. I like to think she guided us to that store on that specific day at that exact moment. But even if it wasn't like that, even if it was just a coincidence, the result is the same. We found each other. We chose each other. We built this. And that's what matters," Maria completed. "Not how it started, but how it continued. How we fought for it. How we chose every day to build this family." They kissed then, a soft kiss, full of love and promises of tomorrows. When they pulled apart, Robert pulled Maria into a hug, and they stayed like that, just holding each other, listening to each other's breathing, feeling their heartbeats in sync. Outside, the city of New York continued its frantic life, indifferent to the personal dramas of its millions of inhabitants. But here, in this house in Queens, there was a family that had found peace. There was love that had blossomed from the ashes. There were children who had gained present and loving parents. There were adults who had learned to love again, to trust again, to believe again. And it had all started on a simple December afternoon in a crowded toy store when a generous-hearted little girl decided that another little boy deserved to be happy too. That small gesture, that childish kindness, had transformed into something much bigger. It had transformed into a family. It had transformed into love. It had transformed into a modern miracle, the kind that happens every day but that few people stop to recognize. The most beautiful families are not born of blood, but of chosen love. The love that is cultivated day after day, in small gestures of affection, in patience during difficult times, in forgiveness when necessary, in constant presence. It is these families that show the true strength of human love, our capacity to reinvent ourselves, to heal deep wounds, to build something beautiful from broken pieces. Robert Miller, Maria Miller, Laura Miller, Leo Miller, and Helen Miller. 5 people whom fate brought together in an unlikely but perfect way. 5 people who chose each other, who loved each other, who built a true home. 5 people who proved that second chances exist, that love always finds a way, that miracles happen for those who are willing to open their hearts and believe. And on that Christmas night, 3 years after their initial meeting, as the family slept peacefully in their rooms, the city outside shone with its Christmas lights. Somewhere, other families were forming, other hearts were opening, other miracles were happening. Because that is the beauty of life. It always finds a way to surprise, to heal, to bring hope even in the darkest of times. And so ends the story of Robert and Maria, of Laura and Leo, of a family that was born from the most unlikely encounter, but became the most solid and true thing in their lives. A story of love, resilience, courage, and, above all, hope. The hope that no matter how lost we are, no matter how dark the path may seem, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. There is always a chance to start over. There is always the possibility of finding love again.